Hi guys and welcome back. The 16th of December. 16. This is like all this waiting. I'm like, because you get halfway and like, oh, halfway, yay! But 16, I don't know, it's just like when your birthday isn't like one of the important ones. It's not like the 1st or like the 5th or the 10th or the 16th or 21 or 25 or 30. It's like all in between. One is just like you're waiting in a way. I've learned that they are just as important. So, let's just start. The Christmas Mystery by Jostein Gaarder, December the 16th. For the rest of the evening of December the 15th, they talked about Elizabeth, John, and the magic advent calendar. Even when nobody said anything, they all knew what the others were thinking about. Papa would drop a fork on the floor as he was clearing the dinner table and say, "Too bad we can't find him. But I expect he's an old fox, and old foxes are very difficult to catch." Mamma would be sitting with a newspaper on her lap, staring straight ahead, and say, "After all, it's a mystery in itself why that little girl never came back." Joachim had put the photo of the grown-up Elizabeth on the mantelpiece. In the middle of the children's program, he would look up from the television at the old photograph and say, "Maybe she was his girlfriend." Mama and Papa heard what he said. Papa put his cup on the coffee table. "Yes, maybe." "Because inside that tiny advent calendar," said Mama, "the one inside the advent calendar that Quirinius gave Elizabeth, was written, not just Elizabeth and Tebasil, there was Roma and Amor as well. Amor means love." Joachim turned off the TV and jumped up from his chair. "It really means something?" Mama nodded. "Yes, Amor means love. But that's Roma backwards," Joachim said. "So perhaps Tebasil really means something as well." Early on the morning of December the 16th, Mama and Papa appeared in Joachim's room. "Wake up, Joachim," said Mama. "It's only 7 o'clock, but we need some extra time together these days." Joachim rubbed the sleep out of his eyes and looked up at all the doors in the advent calendar. He thought again that having the magic advent calendar was like having a birthday every day. Would it be possible to make a calendar like that to last the whole year, he wondered? He remembered something he had dreamed. A little girl had crawled down through a giant batch of pancakes to look for something she had lost. In the end, she found it on the pancake at the very bottom. It was a tiny doll wrapped in cloth. In the dream, the doll was alive. Joachim found the door with the number 16 on it. The folded pieces of paper fell out on the bed, and Papa picked it up. Behind the door was a picture of an old castle. "I'll read it," said Mama. It was her turn. It happened in the days when the old Roman Empire was divided in two. In both East and West, the Christian religion had taken root. But the Christian world was still being plundered by heathens people. They delayed the building of new churches, stole gold and silver, and pillaged whole cities. A decree was sent out from the Pope in Rome that the church property should be defended against the foreigners who had not yet heard about Jesus. That was when a strange procession advanced through time and space on its way to Bethlehem, the city of David. They came from a distant future. At Salone in Dalmatia, they stopped in front of the ancient ruins of a Roman imperial palace. At first, the ruins seemed abandoned, but the godly company entered by way of a small gate in the wall and discovered that the place was teeming with people. It was like tearing the bark off an old log to see small insects creeping around inside. In the middle of the old imperial palace, a small town had been built. When the angel Ephriel saw all the people in the town, he said, "The angel watch says 688 after Christ. We're standing inside the walls of the palace of the Emperor Diocletian. Diocletian was born in this part of the country about 250 years after Christ. He fought against the nomadic tribes and tried to rebuild the old Roman Empire. He closed the Christian churches and persecuted the Christians cruelly. When he died in 316, he was buried here in the great palace. But by the end of the century, the whole of the Roman Empire became Christian. A town grew up inside the old palace of the emperor. Much later, this town will be called Split. While the angel Ephriel was talking, a little boy noticed them. He was wearing almost no clothes. He pointed at them and called out, "Angelos! Angelos!" "What does that mean?" Elizabeth asked Ephriel. It means angels. I don't suppose he's met very many of us before." The next moment, all of the people had seen them. The children stood still and gazed up in amazement, but the grown-ups threw themselves down, murmuring Gloria, Amen, and Hallelujah over and over again. Ephriel hovered above their heads. "Be not in the slightest bit afraid," he said. "For 688 years ago there was born into you in Bethlehem, the city of David, the best Saviour ever. Now we are travelling from the four corners of the earth to pay him homage." A man in black clothes came towards them. "The priest," whispered Ephriel. He said something that Elizabeth didn't understand, but the angel explained that he was talking them to greet the Christ child from this corner of the world too. Joshua struck his shepherd's crook against the old town wall and said, "To Bethlehem! To Bethlehem!" They hurried on down through Dalmatia. They leaped over hills and ridges and had many good views of the Adriatic Sea. Ephriel pointed to a harbour town below. "The time is 659. That little town is called Ragusa and has just been founded by Greeks from the Peloponnesus. Later, the town will become an important trading and shipping centre and will be called Dubrovnik." On a rise with a view over the sea, they met another shepherd, who was sitting under a pine tree to protect himself from the strong sun. He had the same light blue tunic as Joshua, Jacob, and Isaac. When he saw the procession of pilgrims approaching, he got to his feet and came to meet them. "Glory to God in the highest," he said. "My name is Daniel, and I have been waiting here for many years, but I knew you would pass through Dalmatia sometime during the 7th century. I am coming with you to Bethlehem." "Yes, indeed," said Ephriel, "for you are one of us." Joshua struck his crook against the pine tree. "To Bethlehem! To Bethlehem!" Soon they came to a large lake. At the end of the lake was a town. "This town is called Skudra, and the lake is the Lake of Skudra," said Ephriel. "After many centuries this land will be called Albania. We have left the Roman Catholic region now, and have reached the territory that will be governed from Byzantium." Elizabeth felt confused by all the strange names. But the angel explained. The angel watch showed that 602 years have passed since Jesus was born. At this time and throughout the Middle Ages, the Christian Church had two different capitals, the one in Rome and the other in Byzantium, at the mouth of the Black Sea. But didn't they believe in the same thing? On the whole, yes, but they showed it in slightly different ways. For people have come and gone, and so have church traditions and services. Though the start of it all was something that happened one Christmas night in Bethlehem, the city of David. Ephriel ruffled his wings and said, "Yes, indeed! For there was only one Mary and only one Christ child. Since then, many millions of images of Mary and the Christ child have been painted and chiseled, and now two of them are alike. There was only one Christ child, but every person's imagination is a little different." Elizabeth hid these words in her heart. Ephriel beat his wings and came right up to her. God created only one Adam and one Eve as well. There were little children who played hide and seek and climbed the trees in the Garden of Eden, but there was no point in creating a paradise if there were no children who could play in it. But then these two little rascals ate the fruit of the tree of knowledge, and they grew up. That was the end of playing in the world, but only for a short while. Soon grown-up Adam and grown-up Eve had children of their own, and then grandchildren. In this way, God made sure that there would always be plenty of children in the world. There's no point in creating a whole world if there are no little children to keep on discovering it. That's how God goes on creating the world over and over again. He will never quite finish. For new children keep on arriving, and they discover the world for the very first time. Yes, indeed. The two wise men looked at one another. Well, well, said Balthasar, and Caspar added, This explanation is perhaps a little dubious, but all good stories may be understood in at least 2 or 3 ways, and only one story can be told at a time. But even though many billions of children have lived on Earth, not 2 of them have been exactly alike, said Imperial. There are no 2 blades of grass in the whole of creation that are absolutely exactly alike. That's because God in heaven is so full of imagination that every now and again it bubbles over and a little spills into the earth. Fill the waters in the seas and let birds multiply on earth, he said, as he slaved away at creating the world in 6 days. Let the earth bring forth a living creature according to its kind, cattle and creeping thing, and beasts of the earth, each according to its kind. Imperial glanced at Elizabeth. I know it all by heart. Elizabeth clapped her hands. She'd always found it difficult to learn old stories and rhymes by heart. Joshua thumped his shepherd crook on the ground. To Bethlehem! To Bethlehem! On they went, up through the Macedonian highlands. When Mamma finished reading, they sat smiling at one another. This flower seller certainly doesn't lack imagination, said Papa. He turned the pages of one of the atlases. They run through all of Yugoslavia. That's quite a lot for one day. For 100 years, you mean, said Joachim. Every single day is 100 years. But that's only for us, argued Mamma. For Elizabeth and the others, it goes very fast. Besides, it's not called Yugoslavia anymore. It wasn't in the 7th century either. Then it was called Croatia and Dalmatia. Papa went on studying the map. He showed Joachim where they had been running. Finally, he pointed out the towns of Split and Dubrovnik. When Papa came home from work that afternoon, he said, I went to the police station today. Mamma looked surprised. To find Don? Papa shook his head. No, I wanted to find out a little bit more about this girl who disappeared in 1948. She was only 7 years old, and she really did vanish. The police searched for her for months, but she never turned up. The only thing they found was her knitted cap. It was lying in the woods just outside the town, so that little girl must have had a brief life. I don't think you should be so certain of that, said Mamma. Papa went on. I contacted her family too. I made a few phone calls, and I finally managed to talk to her mother. She's now an old lady in the 70s. Mom and Joachim both spoke at once. What did she say? Did you know John? One question at a time, please, said Papa. She couldn't tell me much more than the police, but she did say that once, many, many years ago, she had talked to a man who came from Syria. His name was John. The girl's father died a few years ago. He had travelled to Syria and many other countries, but Papa took a deep breath. She hadn't heard about the picture that was taken in Rome 10 to 15 years after Elizabeth disappeared. I promised to send her a copy. A few minutes after Mom and Papa said goodnight, Joachim got out of bed and sat at his desk. Who was the young woman John had taken a picture of in Rome? Was she called Elizabeth? Or something else? Sabet. Tabas, he said. But why did he say that? They sounded almost like sorcerer's words. Joachim opened his little notebook and looked at the way he had written the 2 names before. Now he wrote. Was that a window? Or was it a cross? Maybe it was an advent calendar. That concludes December the 16th. It's getting intense, man. Who knows? So many mysteries at once. So, I hope you were following along. And I love you all, and I'll see you later.